And we're live. Hello, Dawn with Romance Happy Hour. I'm here with Dylann Crush, Shana Gray, and Celeste Barclay. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Dylann, what are you working on? I know you've got some balls up in the air that you're juggling like crazy.
They're falling, Dawn. All my balls are falling. It's a busy week this week because we've got Romance Happy Hour, and then I know you and I are in a lot of the same giveaways. Yeah. We've got the on right now. I know that we're both in the Must Love Cowboys. We're doing an event there. And then we're also doing the Steamy Heart Hop this weekend. Yeah. So yeah, it's a busy week for love and romance authors.
It really is. Yeah. I was on Monday. Go ahead, Janet.
No, I was just going to say, without all the lives, unable to travel now, I have no idea of any events going on. I wish I did, because I'd be involved in them as much as I could. That's cool that you've got those things.
You know what I found is if you can't find an event that you want to take part in, if you plan it, other people will find you. So
yeah,
that's how I get sucked into planning so many things.
Okay.
Yeah. I was on Thursday. I was on Monday doing some of my scheduling, and I was like, I had all these emails like, you're in this event, you're in this takeover, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't even remember signing up for that.
You know,
there's another
one for takeovers. I go live because that saves so much having to type or get posts ready, and I just have one big long thread of everything underneath that. So I found that works. Yeah.
Lives are a lot of fun. We like them.
We enjoy going live.
Yeah. Too.
We're here.
So yeah, other than this being Valentine's week, I am working on final edits for Getting Lucky in Love, which is part of the Love Vixen series that comes out on March 5th. And then I just turned in final edits on Crazy About a Cowboy that comes out on May 25th. And then I'm going to start on a new project.
What kind of? Oh, I know what kind of. I won't say.
My project, and I don't give Dawn very much information because Dawn always blows all of my secrets. She spills them.
Only Dylan's though.
I know. You can keep other people's secrets, but you constantly tell my secrets. So I only tell Dawn little things.
But I know this, and I know she does have good secrets. That's true. She does. Sometimes they're juicy too.
They are not. All right. What have you been working on, Dawn? I know you've been busy too.
Yes. So, and I guess I will tell you my Romance Happy Hour loves here. Readers, viewers. I am setting up a pseudonym. So, because I have a PNR, I have a paranormal that I pulled from a backlist. So I have decided to rebrand it, everything it. So I'm trying to come up with the name.
So you want their opinion? You want them to give you some
tell me
names for paranormal?
Yeah. Give me some ideas for paranormal pen names. I did have one, which was Lexa Jade. That's what I'm looking at now. I had a couple that I was looking at, and it turns out like all of the paranormal pen names are taken.
Every single one, Dawn. You may as well just give up writing paranormal because every single one is taken.
I mean, maybe not Lexa Jade though, because I searched, and I was like, I'm going to search this one a little bit more. So I am busy writing. I have actually my backlist that I'm going to publish under that. But in the meantime, I'm going to be writing for MT Worlds. And so I am going to be having a book come out. I don't know if it's going to be in March or later. But I'm working on that. I am working on book 3, and I'm doing simultaneous writing, Lipstick and Lassos. So that one I'm hoping to come out this summer. And then shortly after that, I'll be working on Cowboys and Christmas Trees, which is going to be in the Secret Santa box set that is out for pre-order now. So that's what I've been working on.
So are you saying what kind of paranormal that you're writing?
Oh, right. Shifter. Yeah.
Okay.
Shifter romance.
And so since you write a lot of cowboy books, are you doing like horse shifters?
I've done
no. Have you? Oh, I'm going to have to read it. I have to read it.
It's not published yet. I want to put it out, but it's a horse shifter.
Oh, fun.
I haven't seen horse shifters.
I know. It's erotic historical horse shifter.
Oh, wow.
That is fun.
Yeah. It's based on.
Sharon likes Alexa Jade in the comments. So.
Uh-oh.
What? Did Dawn freeze? Sometimes this happens. While Dawn is frozen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Celeste, do you want to tell us kind of what you write and where you're from, if you want to share that, and if you're working on anything in particular right now?
Well, I'm always working on something, so that's kind of a given. I am in sunny San Diego, that area. So I'm about 10 miles from the beach. We were talking earlier about how I grew up in the Midwest. So I am not dealing with snow. I'm sorry for those of you who are. It's really pretty. I'm just really glad I don't have it. So, you know, I'm enjoying my California sunshine during the day. But I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in St. Louis. I lived on the East Coast for a number of years in DC and the surrounding area, but my husband was military and that brought us out here about 14 years ago, and we've stayed. So I write erotic historical romance. I specialize in Highlanders, pirates, and Vikings.
Ooh, pirates.
And I have 4 series at this point. I have The Clan Sinclair, which was my very first adventure and foray into writing. I have Viking Glory, and Leaf, here's a paperback cover of it, is the book that I'll be giving away today. So if we have a US winner, you will get an autographed paperback copy. If we have an international winner, it will be an ebook. And I have Pirates of the Isles, which is definitely my steamiest series. They're all steamy, but this one's got some extra to it. So, you know, steamy extra. Yeah. So the series that I have a new release for today, it's actually a box set. And then another new release on the 16th is The Highland Ladies. And that's a long series. Book 11 out of what will be 15 is coming out on the 16th. So the box set that came out today is books 1 through 5. And okay. I'll be reading a selection from chapter 1 of A Spinster at the Highland Court. This is book 1 in the series, but book 11 is what's coming out.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I'm working on writing, I guess that would be book 12. I just started working on it the other day, so I've been chugging away. I'm a long hauler. I sit down and I work for like 8 to 12 hours, but I knock out a book within 2 weeks. So
nice.
I'm a rapid releaser. So, and you can tell they're fairly thick books. So this is a nice reprieve. It's a nice way to spend my evening rather than typing.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you made it. Yeah, welcome back, Dawn.
Thank you. I have a storm going on. I'm just going to tell you now.
Uh-oh.
What kind of storm?
Well, later on it will be a little bit of snow, but mostly it's going to melt as soon as it hits the ground. So
where are you located?
Virginia.
Oh,
I'm in Virginia. For now. Yeah. For now. I just can't wait until it's 7 o'clock romance happy hour times for me and 8 o'clock for Dylan. That's going to be exciting.
Dawn's moving.
I am later this year.
Hopefully in the next, several months. So then, you'll drive right past me. Although I keep telling Dawn that Minnesota is on the way from Virginia to Montana, and she doesn't agree with me. So
go to Montana.
You gotta go. Ooh, yeah, big arc. You can.
You can make it on the way.
It's on the way.
Okay.
It's totally on the way. I came to your house once. So
I know you
I think
did.
It's only fair. So, yep.
I'll tell my husband.
Okay.
He kind of wanted to go down to Texas again, and I was like, I don't want to see Texas again. But
I always find that the Americans are always moving, like here, there, everywhere. Like we don't up here.
Well, Dawn is because of her husband. I have not moved. I've been in this same area for 20 years now, and it's hard to believe 20 years.
Yeah.
We before you got knocked off there, Dawn, we were Celeste introduced herself. So Shana, you want to tell us a little bit about what you write and where you are and what you're going to be reading from tonight?
Well, I'm from north of the border, just outside of Toronto, and we are, last I checked, minus 11 Celsius out there. So that's cold. And but I write contemporary.
How cold is that?
What?
I'm minus 4 Fahrenheit. So how cold is minus 11 Celsius?
Hey Siri, it is minus 11 Celsius in Fahrenheit.
Minus 11 degrees Celsius is 12.2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh.
Do you know what? My Siri is answering as well. So she hears
Oh,
you.
no kidding.
That's funny.
That's funny.
It's
Yeah.
cold. It's
It
cold.
is cold, and I have a rescue dog. His name is Hero. I changed his name when I got him. He's
Aw.
a golden retriever. Loves outside, so I'm out in it walking. But I write contemporary romance since 2010, and I totally missed my anniversary last year. Oh well. And I have written and, well, I have published over 30 books, probably about 32, and not all of them are in print right now. Or out, and I've got the rights back because they were erotics with small presses, including Alora's Cave. So my plan is to re-release those. But I'm with Harlequin, and I'm also with Headline Eternal Romance, this book, and all the books behind on the poster. Can you see it? They're with Headline. And those ones are the American covers because I have UK covers as well. And also with Entangled and Indie. So I've got some self-published books out there. I'm not sure what I want to read tonight, but this is my one Harlequin Blaze, A Cowboy in Paradise.
Ooh.
So I was thinking of reading that one. I love this book. This is my other one. And then Blaze went out, you know, and that really annoyed me. So I want to get back in with, I think I'm going to give this away. International person. I'll sign it and give it away as long, and that's on top of what I've already set up.
Okay.
So an extra prize. And what was I saying? Oh yeah. I can't remember what I read the last time I was here. If I read one of my Girls Weekend Away books, but I also could read from this one. This is it's up to you. Maybe take a poll of who's out there.
Okay.
Let me know which one you guys want me to read.
You want them to vote if they want the suit or the cowboy?
Yep, the cowboy or working girl. And it starts off with an interview.
Now, Shana, did you say you were in Toronto?
Outside of Toronto,
Oh, okay. Okay.
about an hour away.
I was listening to your accent and I knew I heard it somewhere.
I don't have an
Yeah.
accent.
Yeah. My husband said I did too, because I mean, we were right there on the Canadian border. That's where I'm from Montana.
Well, people say I say about wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think
About-
I say it.
No, yeah. Yeah.
We say it.
You say it. You say it. And then we do have our resident Canadian viewer, Linda. So say hi to Linda. She's here.
Oh,
Hi.
Linda, where are you? Where's Linda?
Linda's not far from you.
No, she's not far from Dylan either.
She says that you guys don't have an accent. I agree.
She's east. She's outside Toronto also, I think.
Yeah.
She'll have to tell us.
What town? Tell her I'm close by Guelph. Well, she can hear me, right?
Yeah, you can tell her because she can hear you.
Yeah, I'm close to Guelph. Where are you, Linda?
Linda says she doesn't have an accent. I haven't heard her talk, but I bet she does. I'm going to say.
We
Oh,
are.
Scarborough.
Ontario.
I was born and raised in Scarborough.
Oh,
That's
I
interesting.
love this.
Yeah, you have to let me know what street you live on, because wouldn't that be something if we even went? I went to Woburn, so go Wildcats.
All right, I only see one vote for the suit. Everybody else wants the cowboy. We've got some cowboy lovers in here, so.
And speaking of that, I just submitted to the Harlequin Desire Cowboy Blitz. So keep your fingers crossed for me, guys.
There's a cowboy blitz?
There was a Cowboy Blitz, and it ended last Friday.
Oh, for Pete's
Well,
sakes.
Yeah, Well, I had a bunch of books. This is a first in a potential 4-book series that was all plotted out, and then Blaze went away. So that's sitting there. But I'm in edits right now for a contracted book that's coming out under a new pseudonym next year. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if I'm going to share that pseudonym yet, or if I'm just going to go secret, So it's think of romance with a Nicholas Sparks type effect to it, of course, with an HEA. So, yeah.
Yes, that's important.
Speaking of which,
HEA.
We should probably get going. Reading. We're getting on.
I know. I'm seeing all the questions coming in. So
yeah. Celeste, you were going to read first?
Sure. So I'm reading a selection from A Spinster at the Highland Court. And this is a steamy Highlander romance. To give you a little bit of backstory, all of the books in this series start out at Robert the Bruce's royal court. So we're talking 1300 Scotland. And in this case, I created a fictional adopted brother for the king. So this one, let's see, this one's Edward and this one's Elizabeth. And you will be getting the first chapter. And to kind of give a little bit of a backstory, this is the first book in the series. It's a spin-off from my very first series of Clan Sinclair. So if you read that series, you got a very brief introduction to Elizabeth and Edward in book 5. And now they're getting their stories. So without further ado, I will go ahead and give you part of chapter 1. And I have my tablet really bright, so that's why it looks like I have a flashlight under my face. I'm not telling ghost stories. I just need to be able to see. Elizabeth Fraser looked around the royal chapel within Stirling Castle. The ornate candlestick holders on the altar glistened and reflected the light from the ones in the wall sconces as the priest intoned the holy prayers of the Advent season. Elizabeth kept her head bowed as though in prayer, but her green eyes swept the congregation. She watched the other ladies in waiting, many of whom were doing the same thing. She caught the eye of Alison Elliot. Elizabeth raised one eyebrow as Alison's lips twitched. Both women had been there enough times to accept that they'd be kneeling for at least the next hour as the Latin service carried on. Elizabeth understood the Mass thanks to her cousin Deirdre Fraser, or rather now, Deirdre Sinclair. Elizabeth's mind flashed the recent struggle her cousin faced as she reunited with her husband Magnus after a 7-year separation. Her aunt and uncle's choice to keep Deirdre hidden from her husband simply because they didn't think the Sinclairs were an advantageous enough match, and the resulting scandal, still humiliated the other Fraser clan members at court. She admired Deirdre's husband Magnus's pledge to remain faithful, despite not knowing if he'd ever see Deirdre again. Elizabeth suddenly snapped her attention, while everyone else intoned the 12th, or was it the 13th, Amen of the Mass. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She had the strongest feeling that someone was watching her. Her eyes scanned to her right, where her parents sat further down the pew. Her mother and father had their heads bowed and eyes closed. While she was convinced her mother was in devout prayer, she wondered if her father had fallen asleep during the Mass. Again. With nothing seeming out of the ordinary and no one visibly paying attention to her, her eyes swept to the left. She took in the king and queen as they kneeled together at their prie-dieu. The queen's lips moved as she recited the liturgy in silence. The king was as still as a statue. Years of leading warriors showed, both in his stature and his ability to control his body, into absolute stillness. Elizabeth peered past the royal couple and found herself looking into the astute hazel eyes of Edward Bruce, Lord of Badenoch and Lochaber. His gaze gave her the sense that he peered into her thoughts as though he were assessing her. She tried to keep her face neutral as heat surged up her neck. She prayed her face didn't redden as much as her neck must have, but at 21, she still hadn't mastered how to control her blushing. Her nape burned like it was on fire. She canted her head slightly before looking up at the crucifix hanging over the altar. She closed her eyes and tried to invoke the image of the Lord that usually centered her when her mind wandered during Mass. Elizabeth sensed Edward's gaze remained on her. She didn't understand how she was so sure that he was looking at her. She didn't have any special gifts of perception or sight, but her intuition screamed that he was still looking. Elizabeth recited the Lord's Prayer in her head, but after a lifetime of reciting it, she didn't have to search hard for the words to play across her mind, and it did little to bring her attention back to the service. Try as she might, her mind refused to do anything but command her eyes to open. Once again, she was staring into the riveting eyes of Edward Bruce. He brazenly smiled at her. Elizabeth's eyes widened and her nose flared. She allowed her head to move this time as she looked at the various members of the congregation. No one there seemed to be looking at either Elizabeth or Edward, but when she looked at the priest, his scowl was aimed directly at her. Instead of bowing her head as she should, she shot her own scowl at the impudent man who continued to distract her. The queen would undoubtedly learn of her impudence from the priest, which meant Elizabeth would be making up for lost time, forced to spend the afternoon in prayer on the prie-dieu in the queen's salon. The difference would be that the other ladies in waiting would watch her in her shame. Edward, who had seen the priest watching Elizabeth from the corner of his eye, couldn't hide his smirk when the beautiful young woman scowled at him. His jaded sense of humor made him smile, while his last shreds of decency caused a moment of contrition. Edward realized what Elizabeth obviously did. She'd be spending time repenting before his sister by marriage, the queen. He considered whether speaking on behalf of Elizabeth would do more harm than good. He looked back at her once again. He couldn't keep himself from doing so. He was sure he'd seen her before when he'd been at court. Edward had seen all the queen's ladies in waiting since they were always in attendance. But there was something different, yet so familiar about this woman with the mysterious green eyes. His intuition hammered that he might have met her before. A memory niggled, fighting its way into his consciousness. Edward had vetted a number of ladies in waiting over the year, but he was sure she wasn't one of them. He was quite certain he'd remember such an encounter. As his eyes feasted on her figure, he was also certain he wouldn't have let her go. His mind flashed to his mistress Sinead, who lived in Ireland. His stomach soured as he remembered his last night with her. As far as he was concerned, she was now his former mistress, but he wasn't convinced the fiery-haired, fiery-tempered woman would agree with her new status. Edward pulled his mind to the present, still looking at the chestnut-haired, green-eyed beauty, was more enjoyable than thinking of the explosive argument that ended his arrangement with Sinead. Edward continued to stare at Elizabeth until the memory finally surged forward. It was his turn to have his eyes widen and his nose flare. It was also the same moment the young woman looked at him. His flash of recognition earned him a reciprocated smirk. She clearly remembered who he was and had more easily remembered their first and only encounter. Elizabeth Fraser. That was her name, and he remembered how she'd felt for the brief moment she'd been in his embrace. His fingers tingled and his palms itched. He now recalled in detail how they met. The young woman spread an intriguing rumor that she was his newest lover. When he overheard the whispers during the evening meal, he sought out the woman who was willing to demolish her reputation by linking herself, voluntarily, to him. He learned she had a sharp mind and was loyal to a fault. She jeopardized her position at court to create a diversion for her friend, Kate Common, and her then-betrothed, now husband, Tavish Sinclair. When they met on a terrace in the dark, he couldn't resist the temptation to taunt and hopefully tempt her. That was when Edward realized her reserved demeanor was a facade. Elizabeth matched words with him, then slipped away. He followed her into the ballroom, but she entrenched herself with the other ladies in waiting, making it impossible for him to claim a dance. Edward was determined to rectify that situation, if only it weren't Advent, the second most solemn season at court. He was thankful he'd come home now rather than during Lent. At least he had the Christmas festivities to look forward to, that and a woman to woo. Elizabeth worked her way through the mass of people leaving the chapel. She tried to be unobtrusive since she had no interest in lingering. She wove around one group, then another, as people stopped to greet each other. She never understood why people liked to mingle when Mass ended, as if they wouldn't see each other during the next 3 meals of the day. Elizabeth intended to make her way to the Queen's salon, anticipating not only Her Majesty's arrival, but her own inevitable punishment. If she readied the chamber and had everything as the Queen preferred, then her attempt at contrition might lessen the time she'd be ordered to spend in prayer. She had no remorse, but her knees rebelled at the idea of another 3 hours spent bearing her weight. Elizabeth stepped through the chapel doors and took a sharp right directly into a broad, muscled chest. Her nose landed in the small dip in the man's sternum. Strong but gentle hands cupped her shoulders and helped her to take a step back. The look of shock on the man's face surely matched hers, except when his morphed into a smile, hers turned to horror. She jerked away and turned in a complete circle as she tried to determine if anyone had seen them. "No one has looked this way," the deep baritone murmured, wrapping around her like a fur coat. "If I'd known I'd meet you so quickly, I might have paid more attention to where I waited." The humor in his voice rang in Elizabeth's ears, but she failed to find anything funny about the situation. "Excuse me, Lord Bradendush, I should have looked where I was going." Elizabeth dipped a curtsy and tried to escape. Edward watched the woman he spent his morning fantasizing about attempt to retreat. "Don't scamper away quite yet." He kept his voice low so only she could hear. He was sure someone was bound to see them standing together, so the least he could do was keep his voice down while he tried to seduce her. Elizabeth's brows lowered and a fine line formed at her downturned lip. "I am not a squirrel, a chipmunk, or any other rodent. I don't scamper," Elizabeth hissed. She spun on her heels. Edward was prepared to follow her when his name was called by the only person who could force him to stay. He stifled his sigh. "Brother," King Robert slapped his hand on Edward's shoulder, as only a brother could do. "I'm glad to see you again. We didn't have enough time to speak last night. Your arrival came as a surprise and late. Dum, dum, dum. You shall have to pick up the book to find out what else happens, but let me tell you, it starts heating up pretty quickly." So that is my selection from A Spinster at the Highland Court. Thanks for listening to me, everybody.
Dylan, I don't know why I put you up there. Okay.
Surprise.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for reading. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So, funny fact, I am Robert the Bruce is actually my ancestor.
That's cool.
Yeah, and William Wallace's brother is my husband's.
Well, it was kismet then. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
You know what I always wondered about the movie Braveheart? Because I love that Robert the Bruce in that movie. The Princess of Wales was French, right? And so she was pregnant by William Wallace, which means there's no English blood, right? Only French and Scottish blood in the royal family. That's what I always thought, and is it true? Like, isn't that
there's a few different theories on that, but if that were the case, that certainly wasn't what any of the British monarchs were going to claim at the time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, for sure.
It didn't quite
Me. I think that's
jive with Edward the First being the hammer of the Scots.
yeah. I love all those period shows that you can get on Netflix. I just enjoy them so much and try and put together the whole the family tree of the monarchy. What do you think of since you're writing royal there? What do you think of this whole Meghan and Harry thing?
Well, let me preface this by saying that even though I sound 100% American, I am 50% English, as in a passport-carrying English woman. My mom is from Yorkshire. So I am a fan of the monarchy. And I think it's the historian in me that digs it still. I am a little bit torn between a sense of duty and a sense of independence and family. I can appreciate both sides. I doubt that it was an easy choice or a hurried choice, but it is a little difficult for me to swallow him stepping down as far as he did. Yeah.
My mom was English too, so I'm half as well. She was from Eastbourne, and she's like royal to the bone, and it rubbed off on me. I even spoke to the Queen when I was little, but I don't know, the whole thing with him and her stepping down, and there's so many places that like Murky Meg, Yankee Wally, all these people that I'm addicted to these videos that talk about them and how they're behaving. Apparently she won the legal suit today. The judge ruled on her favor for, what was it? For invasion of privacy or whatever.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I'm American and I only have British in my bloodline like far back there, and I still think I wish they would have just stayed. I mean, because what kind of guy steps down from the royal family? I mean, not what kind of guy. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's definitely influenced by love, and I just think it's so sad.
Theories out there, isn't there, that it was organized before, and they say she was a yacht girl with that guy. I'm not even going to say his name. Yeah, and is there a baby Archie? There's just so much, it's hard to know what to believe.
I just think it's sad, and I'm against it. I wish they would have just stuck it out personally, but I'm just my little Montana girl.
We want all of it to work out. We want a happy couple.
Well, exactly.
We want them with their castles.
I heard today that William and Kate are trying for number 4. So
wow.
See, I love
that.
that.
And usually had her baby, so that's cool. Yeah, I love the royals.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. I haven't written royal yet. I won't probably. But it's
see, and I read the crap out of some Regency, but I won't write it because I I will read the crap out of it, but I won't write it because I'm just too scared. Like, unless I really begged. My husband had the opportunity twice to get stationed in England, and I begged him. I begged him and begged him and begged him, and he couldn't handle going overseas that far away from home. So I was like, this could have been so good for my career.
I love Regency readers and I love Regency authors. Some of my best author friends are Regency-esque, to broaden the timeline a little bit. But those Regency readers, they will come for you. If you they're very precise in how it is, and they're very precise in what they believe is the history. So if you deviate, even if you're the one who's right, you have to be prepared, but they are among the most loyal, diehard romance genre readers you will find, and they are so incredibly supportive.
Yeah. So is Kate here for you then, or is she just coming back because she misses us in Romance Happy Hour? Because she's one of our favorite Regency authors that have been on here. She's a good author.
I don't know. I saw her in the comments. We have lots of questions though. So I don't know if we want to go ahead and have Shana read and then dive into questions, or if you want me to go ahead and share some now.
I mean, we got 7 minutes. Wait, we can pop out a couple questions.
Okay. We'll go through some questions. So Karen, who is our resident question person, I guess. I don't know, how else would you describe Karen? Karen's the one that likes to volley questions nonstop throughout the entire episode, which we appreciate. Karen wants to know. Karen wants to know, what is the first book that made you cry?
Ooh.
That I wrote or that I read?
I don't know.
I'll say both.
That you read, but
well, I think Black Beauty was the first book that made me cry. I was like in 3rd grade, and I was there in silent reading, laying on the floor going, "Oh, I'm a horse." I think the first one that made me cry that I wrote, like really made me cry, was Tyra and Bjorn, which is the 3rd one in the Viking Glory series. So that would have been my 6th, 7th, 8th, my 9th book that I wrote, something like that. I'm at like 25. I don't always remember which one's which. But yeah, that one I made myself like bawl and cry.
How about you, Sheena?
I don't know. I've obviously cried, but the one that sticks out in my head the most is Marley and Me. That book had me laughing on one page and crying on the next. And I dreaded going to see that movie, but I did. But at least I wasn't the only one crying in the theater. The one I wrote that made me cry is this one, After the Hurt. I'm trying to get a picture there. I'm going to be self-publishing that one. I got the rights back. It was with Love Swept. Because the reason the heroine does what she does in this is because her mom died, and I made it how my mom died. And so there was one particular scene in there where it kind of wrecked me. So there was that one.
Can I ask Dylan, have you ever cried when you wrote a book?
Not like, see, most of my books are pretty light.
Funny?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think.
No, I'm
No,
not
I
talking
haven't-
about crying because you're past your deadline either. It
Yeah,
has to be like
no,
crying for plot purposes.
100 words left to edit tonight.
yeah, no, I can't say that I've cried while I have been writing any of my books. I think the book that, if we're going back to school, Where the Red Fern Grows, I mean, I still can't read that book because I mean, Big Dan and Little Ann, and I mean, it's still like even talking about it. But yeah, I don't think I've cried, like broke down sobbing. I mean, every once in a while, you know, as I'm writing, I'll kind of get a little like, but yeah, I haven't broken down sobbing or anything like that in any of my scenes. How about you?
I have. Big Sky Brazen, one of my my historicals, because I had to kill off one of the characters that I loved, but I mean, while I was writing it, it just happened, and I was pretty upset while I was killing him. It was
So you got mad at yourself for doing it, but you couldn't stop yourself?
Exactly.
Oh, funny.
The plot said, he's got to die. I'm sorry.
All right. Karen also asks, what's the best way to market your books? And that question we could probably spend like 4 or 5 days answering,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
what's your most condensed answer to that?
Who knows?
I mean, it has to be a multi-pronged attack, and there's no one singular way that's going to work for any one author. You know, I'm coming up on 3 years of publishing. I published His Highland Lass in April of 2018, and I've churned out a lot of books since then. And so it's given me a chance to really kind of try and figure out how to best market your books. There's paid advertisements on Amazon and Facebook. There's the paid newsletters. There's using your social media, you know, doing things along those lines. But I think the most tried and true way, honestly, is still the same as it is in any industry, and that's word of mouth. If you can get a reader group or into a reader group where other people vouch for your books and will share what they like about it, then that's the proof in the pudding that everybody wants, you know. And they say, oh, you need X amount of reviews on X site for it to do this, that, and the other. But I find that the interaction on social media, when it's being driven by your readers, is one of the best sources of marketing that you can do. And then once a reader reads the first one, then your books market themselves in read through. Hopefully people will continue on and they'll read through that series, and then they'll move on to your next series. So I think that, you know, it's multi-pronged for sure, but the word of mouth, just like in any industry, is what's going to do the best for you.
Yep. Well, I would agree. And I think, I mean, to really, I guess, distill that down into, you know, what's the best way to market your books is to write a really good book that people want to talk about and share with others. So how about you, Shana? Anything to add to that?
What she said, really, it's true. And honestly, like, I have so many Facebook pages because I've got multiple languages. At first they were doing well, and then I've just fallen off. But quite frankly, I work in my reader group more than I work anywhere else in Facebook, and it's called Shana's Secret Readers, if you guys want to come find me. And I'm on TikTok. I love TikTok. It is so fun. If anybody are TikTokers, my son is Shane Wally. He's got almost 3 million people and all this
Holy
stuff.
cow.
He's doing it. Yeah. But it's and newsletters. It's your own landscape, like your own property that you own type of thing. My newsletter is mine. It's going out tomorrow, and there's a free read going in. So if anybody wants it, now's the time to sign up. But people tell you about Goodreads. Like, I don't know, like Goodreads is supposed to be another great place to be present on. And like, I think, like Celeste said, it's being present and recognizing your readers. I'm starting to get a lot of reader mail, which is awesome, you know, and I always respond to emails when readers reach out to me, because it's all part of it, you know. But yeah,
that's like the highlight of my day, when I get emails from readers. Like when I let myself take a little break to write and I open up my email and somebody's responded to my newsletter or they're asking a question, like for me, it's very validating that somebody's taken the time to reach out and send me a message. So it totally makes my day.
Totally. And I love to be involved with other authors. So, you know, if there's things going on like this type of event or other things, like I'm there, you know, like I'll be there because I want to reach out and to meet more people, because especially now we're all so stuck.
Yep.
I wanted to put together like a Zoom, just fun Zoom, like an online, what do you call it? I'm getting conference. You know, like just get a bunch of authors and do it on Zoom or in a room and just talk and have readers come. You know, that would be fun to do too.
That'd be fun too.
Yeah.
Well, should we go ahead and let Shana read, and then we'll get to more of these questions, because we want to make sure we have time.
Yeah. Just tell me how long I've got, or tell me when to stop. I'll start with my first chapter. So as you know, I'm reading A Cowboy in Paradise, set in Hawaii. Okay. Whew, hair in my mouth. Jimmy Calloway couldn't comprehend a destination wedding in Hawaii that wasn't on the beach. The wedding was inland, on a ranch, no beach in sight. Her words echoed in her ears. Please just take care of the arrangements. Tell me when I have to be at the airport, she told Josie, her assistant, when the invitation had arrived a couple of months ago. Now she wished she'd not been so damn preoccupied with the finishing touches to her first commission gown for the Oscars and paid more attention to the finer details of this event. Jimmy sweated under the hot Hawaiian sun. Raising her face to the sky, she closed her eyes and absorbed the sun's energy. It was a whole lot better than dreary, gray, and cold New York City. She got bumped from behind and nearly toppled off her Christian Louboutins. Oh, pardon me, Jimmy said, and scampered not to sprawl into the dirt. My apologies, a heavy-set man in a straw hat and tropical flowered shirt steadied her by grabbing hold of her elbow. Jimmy gently pulled from his grasp. It's okay, no problem, she said, smiling at him. She glanced down at her Chanel dress. It had held up pretty well until now. After the 12-hour flight and the bus ride from the airport to this Hawaiian ranch, she swept her hand. I'm not reading very well. I'm sorry. She swept her hand over the fabric covered in dust and travel wrinkled, finally giving up when her sweaty palms smudged the dirt. Crap. Her hair would be 1980s huge in this humidity. Trying to blow the damp tendrils out of her eyes, she watched the luxury coach drive away, stranding her in the boonies of the Big Island. She hadn't enough of the farm life growing up on a commune. Jimmy shivered, a time she didn't particularly want to remember. And to top it all off, her suitcase was lost. Panic began to set in. How would she face the day without a suitcase that housed her full armor of makeup and clothing and essentials? A habit she'd started years ago. She couldn't recall the last time she'd gone without makeup. Why hadn't Diana chosen the Four Seasons to have her wedding instead of here? Jimmy swung her gaze back to the lady ranch hand who had delivered the upsetting news about her suitcase. Out of habit, she eyed the young woman all decked out in cowgirl clothes. The cowgirl looked at Jimmy with clear gray eyes and confidence. Jimmy bet she didn't have a worry in the world. She seemed so amazingly comfortable that Jimmy almost envied her. The woman shifted her feet and spurs jangled in the dust. Jimmy glanced down at the impressively tooled creations. Wow, I love your cowboy boots. Thank you. They were great boots with turquoise leather inlay and stitching. Jimmy looked up and met the young woman's eyes, doing her best not to let aggravation over her lost bag ruin the day. I'm really sorry about your suitcase. It's not your fault. I'm just thrown a little off kilter by all of this, Jimmy admitted. I understand, but I'm sure it will arrive soon. My name is Larson, and I'll definitely keep an eye out for your bag. Jimmy nodded, trying not to let her disappointment show. She'd been looking forward to unwinding in Hawaii after the wedding. It was a treasured bit of time between moments of chaos. She so needed to decompress. Vacation time that had been almost impossible to carve out of her busy schedule, but she'd managed and had lived for these precious weeks in Hawaii. 21 days of sleeping in, relaxing in a cabana by the pool or beach, spa treatments, and hopefully a bit of man time. She'd been without a man's touch for far too long and desperately needed some attention from the male species. She'd been so busy, and the promise to design Diana's dress was fit in between the other orders. It was a beautiful creation. Diana's dress, it was lost over the Pacific, in her suitcase. How would she ever explain this to her friend? Aloha, folks. Welcome to Broken Creek Guest Ranch. Jimmy spun around, startled by the loud voice, which resonated in her chest like a bass drum. Deep, masculine, surprisingly seductive. It held a mild twang that completely caught her attention. Lost bags, Diana's dress, and wrong destination momentarily forgotten. Jimmy sucked in a breath as she pinned her eyes on the owner of said voice. Struck dumb, she hadn't expected to see such a hot cowboy. But of course, there would be cowboys, right alongside cows, horses, flies, and shit. A crazy mix next to the tropical foliage, beautiful blue skies, and gorgeous flowers. Well, hello, Hawaiian hottie. Jimmy couldn't stop staring at the man standing on the front porch of the rustic-looking building. His head almost brushed the overhang, he was so tall. She'd never been so drawn at first glance to a man before. He oozed a dangerous sexuality that reached across the dusty ground and lit her like a sparkler. He was gorgeous. It was like he snagged her with the lasso and yanked it tight. Jimmy caught her breath and placed her hand over her heart as it tripped into double time. This Hawaiian cowboy was large, muscled, and tanned. He had it all going on. She smiled when she noticed the collar of his Western-style shirt. The pattern on the fabric was a ring of deep red hibiscus flowers. Only here could he get away with that. Her mind tumbled over itself as she considered ways she might be able to get this devilishly sexy cowboy on his own. Had a silver lining just appeared on the clouds of doom? Jimmy crossed her arms and hugged herself to keep from trembling, unable to drag her gaze away from him. She wasn't opposed to a holiday fling, preferably at a 5-star hotel with butlers, vintage wine, and gourmet dining, and not on a ranch. Finally, being able to afford the finer things, she'd become accustomed to them. Something told her this smoking hot cowboy would transplant well and be a sweet distraction, as long as he showered. She nodded to herself. She'd be able to make do for a short time without her bag. Seeing this delectable male specimen made her realize how travel-weary she must look. The urge to step behind the cowgirl, to hide herself, made her shuffle backwards without looking away from him. His gaze swung through the crowd as he continued with his welcome. Then his attention fell on her. Jimmy's feet froze, and she was rooted to the spot, as if the dirt reached up and grabbed her ankles. Good Lord, he was too gorgeous for words. All Jimmy's thoughts fled when a big, wide smile curved on his tanned face. He was clean-shaven, but his dark hair was long, ruffling over his shoulders. Her belly fluttered, something she'd not experienced in, ever. Unable to see his eyes, shadowed by the brim of his hat, made him all that much more enigmatic. She wanted him bad. Her blood rushed, and her arousal for him nearly made her swoon. She held her breath, enjoying the rare sensation as desire swept through her. The sun came out from behind a cloud, and Jimmy raised her hand to shield her eyes from the glare so she could see him. He seemed to be looking directly at her, and she smiled. Did he smile at her? His gaze lingered a little bit and then moved on. The break in their connection was surprisingly disappointing. There's some grub waiting for you in the dining room, and once y'all fill your bellies, the luggage will be in the change rooms. He pointed, and she turned to the beautiful log building with the paned windows and a wide front porch. How am I doing for time? Keep going. And the wide front porch. Rocking chairs sat at the ready, and there were even hitching posts and water troughs, just like in classic Western movies. There you can get on your riding gear while your horses are saddled, and we'll make our way. Excuse me, Jimmy raised her hand and waggled her fingers. Did you say horses? She blurted. The cowboy placed a booted foot on the mounting block. Yes, she'd ridden and knew the lingo. She'd been a fairly decent rider, having grown up with horses on the commune, but fashion and makeup were her escape from that and into a new and exciting world, far from her impoverished growing up. His smile widened, and he pushed his hat back on his forehead with his thumb. He leaned over and rested his forearm on his knee. She watched every move he made, utterly mesmerized. His jeans tightened nicely over his thighs and hips. A flash of silver at his waist drew attention to the monstrosity of a belt buckle, and her gaze drifted lower until she realized she was gaping at his. You got that right, ma'am. Jimmy pulled her gaze away from the tempting sight to his face and felt a full flush grow on her cheeks. Had he caught her staring at his very manly package? She nearly groaned at the possibility and glanced around, feeling uncomfortable that everyone was now staring at her like she'd grown a second head. She braced herself, expecting laughter to explode around her. It seemed it didn't matter how old you were. The insecurities from childhood could rush back at the most inopportune moment. Squaring her shoulders, Jimmy turned back to the cowboy. I'm sorry, but I'm here for the McCain-Scott wedding. You're in the right place. Her heart sank. But this is for a destination wedding. Jimmy waved her hand, indicating the miles of meadows beyond the very neat and tidy buildings. This is no beach. She felt her cheeks flush hotter at the scattered laughter behind her. She wished the ground would break open and swallow her up. We have a beach on the property, ma'am. It's just a long way from here. Not only was his drawl sexy and deep, she heard a compassion in his voice that made her feel a tiny bit better. So, no beach wedding? She said, immediately wished she had not asked the inane question, which, of course, she already knew the answer to. He shook his head and smiled again at her. He was totally charming and sincere, giving no hint he was making fun of her. Jimmy relaxed somewhat at his calm tone. No, not right now.
Shana, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I was like, okay, I think she's got
I
it.
couldn't get in there because I wasn't sure. I figured somebody would give me a hint.
No,
So,
I was waiting for like a good
break.
hook. Yeah.
Nicely
good.
done.
Yeah.
I love that book. I think when they ask you what's your favorite book, I think it's this one. Of all
So, did you get to go on a research trip?
I've been to Hawaii twice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Love it there. I've not been to the Big Island, so that was research. But I have a friend who lives there, so she really helped me with the proper things because it's easy to fudge it. A lot of my spot, like the book I just finished, is set in Washington State, and so I had to do a lot of research on that. Because I've never been. It's not set in Seattle, but in a fictitious town. So you don't want to mess it up.
Right. Yep. Well, we do have a couple more questions that I figure we'll try to get through them. I'm going to move to Linda's question. She wants to know, if you write a series, how do you keep things fresh for both your readers and yourself? Who wants to tackle that one first?
My series behind here, Girls Weekend Away series. It's 4 girlfriends that were in college together that lost track of each other and then come back together when they're in their early to mid 30s. So each book is about a different girl, but they all overarch through them all. And there's ties between all the books, but each story is a standalone on its own, but the other girls are there, and there's always throwbacks to the other books. Hopefully that keeps it fresh.
Well, in my case, for example, my Viking Glory series, the one where I'm giving away the copy of Leaf, there's a villain throughout the entire series. So you can read each book as a standalone, but if you want to find out what happens with the villain, then you need to come back for the next installment. And the 5th book in that series is actually a prequel. So it's the one of the sets of parents, and it gives you a lot of the context of why the villain became the villain. So I think having that and knowing that there's sort of installments to that story helps keep it fresh. with the Highland Ladies, which is, I read a selection from that. Each of those books has some type of a relevant, like social justice topic that connects to what's going on nowadays, but I show how it was just as relevant or pertinent in medieval times. So you kind of come back and there's a different vibe to each one, you know? So I've looked at mansplaining and misogyny. I've looked at body dysmorphia and eating disorders, you know, dysfunctional families and illegitimacy. Like there's just a lot of different topics that are part of the tropes. So each one has something different. And then my Pirates of the Isles, there's different degrees of kinky in them. So people come back for that to see just how much I'm giving them in the next installment. So
that keeps it fresh.
For couples too.
So I think Dawn might be, no, you're still there.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were frozen there for a second. Do you have anything to add to that? How do you keep things fresh?
Oh, for Pete's sakes. I mean, spend hours looking through my books to try to find the information of what color his eyes were because I forgot to write it down. I don't know.
I'll move over to Scrivener and I keep
yeah, no. Scrivener has really helped me. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure it has. I do have for my past books, I had kept like little folders and stuff with all the information in it. Now Scrivener helps me out a lot. And then I have these character profiles on Scrivener. They get pictures and just do all these outlines and I don't know. Yeah. Scrivener now. It used to be paper and I'm finding them in all my boxes of stuff that got saved from the flood. So like I'm like, oh, this is from my first book that I ever wrote. Look through it. It's fun. What about you, Dylan?
How do I keep things fresh? I think, I mean, I'm constantly looking to, you know, if I have written a certain kind of character last time, then maybe there are different archetypes. For those of you that are not so into the, you know, like writing of stuff, but more into the reading, I don't know if you've noticed there are certain, you know, different types of archetypes for heroes and heroines. And so, you know, if I've written in tropes too, so I try to mix up my tropes, and that leads into the next question. But, you know, I try to constantly keep things different or change it up. If I wrote you know, like brother's best friend, shy, quiet girl, and, you know, like super outgoing guy, then the next book I might mix it up and try to write something different. So I guess that's how I kind of keep things fresh. But that does lead us into Dawn's question, which is, if you write more than one trope, how do you pick which trope you are going to write next?
I'm a pantser, so I have no idea. So it's just whatever comes.
How about you, Celeste?
I'm definitely a pantser too. Like I have a pretty good idea of what I want the different books in the Highland Ladies series in particular, because it is, you know, there's a particular social issue that I address in each one. I have a pretty good idea of what I want in each of the books. Where it's going to go from there, who knows? You know, once I get started, I use a very loose kind of outline. And don't stick with it really hard. I'll go back and look and be like, oh, maybe I should reel myself back in and go in the direction I originally planned. But, you know, I think there's tropes that we're all familiar with that we gravitate towards because we enjoy them as readers. And so we enjoy writing them as well. And there's nothing wrong with revisiting the same trope. You just use different settings, different characters, different plot twists to it. So you can have, you know, 4 or 5 enemies to lovers or friends to lovers or arranged marriages, as long as you're spicing things up and changing over who the characters are and what they're doing. So it's not reinventing the wheel to keep coming up with tropes. I think it's finding the tropes that you're most comfortable reading and writing and then putting your own spin on them.
Yep.
And that's what I love about writing too, is like my characters, they have their own stories. So like as far as tropes, like, yeah, you might have to like throw a different trope in here, but usually it comes naturally according to your character and his personality or her personality. For me, anyways. That's it for me.
It's a natural evolution.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and one more question from Linda. What's your favorite and least favorite part of publishing?
Editing.
Edits!
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a recovering English teacher, so I don't mind edits because I've spent pretty much my entire adult life either editing my own work or editing somebody else's work. So I don't mind it too much. I think the part that I like the least, it's the time spent like formatting in this program that a lot of authors use called Vellum. It's doing little things like that when I just want it to be all done and perfect and not having to put all the pieces together. And I'm not a huge fan of having to sit and upload onto the different retail platforms. I wish that was just like, oh, I thought it and it happened.
Get did
minutia that I don't like.
Yeah. Yep.
I discovered Grammarly today. And it's like, where has that been all my life? Because I took one of my chapters. I had that one of the edits in there. They made a comment. This is like not my publisher editor. This is like another editor, and she made this comment in there. And I'm thinking, I think you're wrong. And so I copied that piece, and I thought, oh, I'll go over and see if I can find somewhere to do this. And it was a tenses issue, and I popped it into Grammarly and it was perfect. And I thought, okay, so what does that mean? Because then when you go and you look at all the comments and the edit that your editor makes, it's like, if they're only suggestions, a lot of them, grammar wise, I am not a grammar guru. So that's why I suddenly fell in love with Grammarly.
You should try Pro Writing Aid too.
I'm a huge proponent. I'm like a one-woman billboard for Pro Writing Aid.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Is that a free app?
No.
No, but you can get a lifetime license.
Okay. Well, and you can. It's free for just like Grammarly, chat, little snippets here and there. You can do it, but you can also get a license. Yeah.
Okay. Of all the things that I've invested in my writing career, I would say Pro Writing Aid and Vellum were the two best purchases that I have ever made. And, it's a really great program because it gives you suggestions and you can use it as you're writing. So I find that really helpful. There's a couple different ways to use it. It catches things that I might not catch until my final read through, and it gets it right then and there. So I just find that it's helped me become even more efficient. And that's really, with how fast I write and how rapidly I release, the efficiency and the ease is everything to me. And they have wonderful customer service. So if you ever have an issue, they will be back to you in a hot second.
I'll
so
check it.
One woman billboard right here.
I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions. Oh, Donna wants to know, what was the name again of the book that you read from, Shana?
Oh,
Linda answered. Yeah.
The Cowboy in Paradise.
Yep. I saw that. Linda answered. And then Karen had a couple more questions. Do we have time for one or two more, Dawn? I know we're over.
We're 5 minutes over. So if we go fast.
Okay, I will pick one more of Karen's questions. Let me find it here real quick. What comes first for you, the plot or the characters, and why?
For me, it's an idea, so it'd probably be the plot, but then the character, it's all the same. Because if I get the idea, then there's the people in the idea. Like this book I just finished now, I saw the beginning and I saw the kind of like a movie set, pages in my head, and then I'll start going. I tend to jump in, and I need to get better at character building before I get into my books because I just jump in, and that can be a problem because then you might go off on a tangent when you shouldn't, and it may not be something that the person shouldn't be doing based on their characters.
Yeah, they're so intrinsically connected for me that I can't really tell you which happens first, the character or the plot. Ever since I was really little, right before I would fall asleep, different story ideas would come to me. And it was kind of like watching TV to fall asleep. It's the same thing. So if a scene comes back to me more than one night, I know I have the basis for a story. And it might only be a really short snippet scene in my head, but I know there's something that needs to get out. And so refining the details as far as like what color hair they have and what clan they're from or what their ship is called, those little things come when I'm sitting down and I'm really getting going. But as far as the basis of the characters and the plot, they're just so interconnected from the very beginning that I can't tell you which comes first.
Mm-hmm.
A chicken and an egg arrived at my computer at the same time.
If I was writing my dreams, I'd be writing all sci-fi and horror. So
I once had a dream in the middle of my dream. I thought, literally in my dream, I thought, this is going to be an amazing book. I have to write this down when I wake up. And that my dream said that to me. And then I woke up and I remembered my dream and I said, that is the worst book ever. How did I
scribble?
So awesome.
That I'd be by my bed and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? I don't even know what I wrote.
Yeah.
This series, my Girls Weekend Away series, this book's free, by the way. It came from a video, an idea from a video for a casino in Casino Niagara Falls. It was Girls Weekend Away. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen that commercial, but yeah, I pitched that to the editor that way and it sold the book.
That's how I get my ideas. I hear it like for my very first book ever, I read a fact that in 1850, there were camels in Montana. Oh. Because the army brought them in to deal with the Indian, to try to help them with the Indians. And the camels would not work for them. So they released them into the wild and people would shoot them thinking they were moose. Oh. And so that's where that plot came from. And it apparently, I don't know how my mind works because I thought camel in the wild, great love story. So,
you made it work, Dawn. You made it work.
All right. Well, we are over time, so we are going to say goodnight. Thank you so much,
so
Anna.
I was able to come. This has been wonderful. I've had such a good time.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'd come back again. And everybody, my newsletter's going. Sign up for your free book.
Yeah. Sign up. Yeah. Drop that link in there, Shana.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So we have next week, we've got Romance Happy Hour Book Club. We're going to be talking to some of the other authors in the Steamy anthology. So please join us for that on February 18th. And then we have another regularly scheduled episode on the 25th.
We do.
So I know, busy month for us.
It's great.
Well, we've been like this every month since you got back from London and started.
Well, that's not true because, in November and December, we missed a few. So it feels like we're like back into a regular schedule now. It's been good. But yeah, we have had, I know one of these days we're going to switch to weekly episodes, aren't we, Dawn? I know it's going to happen. We're inching toward that.
When I'm in Montana and I can do them at 7:00 instead of 9.
That's 9 for me too. Oh, yeah. 10 now. And I've got edits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that you all have a very happy Valentine's Day weekend. And
don't forget the chocolate.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
All right.